Okay, we are back, and today we're working on the Rebel. More specifically, we're installing a cold air intake on it. This is video number 2 out of the cold air intake series that I'm going to be doing, testing out 2 different cold air intakes on the Rebel to see if they even make a difference and if it's worth your money. So we've already gotten the truck into the dyno. We've got some baseline numbers to see what we're working with. That video is up, so if you haven't checked it out, make sure that you do. I'll put the link in the description down below. And if you have, thanks for coming back. I appreciate the support. So today I decided to install the aFe Power Momentum GT. So real quick, we'll take a look at everything that came in the box. Then we're gonna go in and install it and then get it down to the guys at Real Performance so they can get it on the dyno and see if it works. All right. First, we're gonna look at everything that we have that came in this big old fancy box right here. Starting off with an instruction manual. And then this fancy little envelope here. Let's see what's in it. Here we go. Oh, stickers. There you are. Look at that. Yep. It's always good when you get stickers. That's like one of the best parts about the whole thing. So it came with some stickers, and this looks like a warranty registration. Oh, and coupons? Oh, coupon codes. Okay, cool. I like that. And then in this little bag, it looks like we have some, I think like the couplings, some hardware basically for installation. Same thing up here with this guy. And then obviously this big boy right here, inlet or whatever it's called. I guess, would it be an inlet, or I don't know, whatever. That's where power comes out of. So in here it's got this little design feature. It's, when I saw it on the internet, I thought it was going to go a little further down, like it would be like a wall in here, but that's literally it. And I guess this is supposed to split up the air, which helps it with better flow, I guess. I'm not an engineer, so I'll just have to take their word for it. But anyway, that's that piece right here, which means that over in this box, we have the air filter. Drum roll, please.
I've been in your waters. I'm looking for sure. I've never been so close.
small section, it's showing about 17 foot-pounds of torque, maybe 20. It's got a pretty good gap right there.
At about 40, what's 4,600?
Showing nearly 20 horse and 20 foot-pounds of torque from 4,500 to, obviously it dwindles down to here. It's really hard to say, but it should be theoretically even right there. That dip is probably locking the converter. That's just hard to get it
It's stubborn, huh?
to hold that gear, you know what I mean, without.
It just wants to constantly downshift.
We literally have to unlock the ECM and program it to not downshift to get you in. That's
Yeah,
what sucks.
I'm not like that invested in it.
Yeah. I just want to give you something accurate, but I don't know if we're going to be able to. I think to get you a real number, we literally have to get it to lock in that gear.
Yeah, because then you can get a proper torque.
My concern right here is these numbers is the torque converter locked on this one, and it wasn't quite locked on this one, and then once it locked, you can see them kind of even out.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to give you nonsense numbers that we can't prove whether the converter was locked at the same time, stuff like that.
Right. That's a tough one.
Just, I mean, if usually like we've done a bunch of newer Rams, but I have the ECM unlocked and I have full control of the transmission, if that makes sense.
Is that because you guys are doing? Oh wait, on newer Rams?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We can tune them, but I literally have to. The ECM has to be unlocked for me to be able to tell it not to downshift.
Right.
So whenever I don't really have this issue, because whenever it's on the dyno, I'm usually tuning it.
Right.
So
Because you've unlocked it.
yeah,
In your,
yeah.
Okay.
So I can lock it in the gear and then compare the baseline versus. I just don't know if we're going to be able to get a better pull than that.
Well, it's hot as fuck now.
Yeah, I know, so the number's going to be down. But it still looks like it might be picking up a little in the mid-range.
Mid-range, you're thinking like 3,000, 3,500?
4,500 above,
45.
those numbers are better. But if this is where the converter's coupled and locked up, it's going to spike it a little bit. And then you can see where it kind of dwindles back down.
So even though they're looking better, it's not necessarily.
The intake.
Yeah, it could just be.
I mean, realistically, I'd say you get anywhere from 10 to 12 horsepower and torque from this pretty easily.
I mean, that's not bad.
I mean,
But we don't know for
depends
sure.
on the application. This one, the Dodges, the intakes don't do a huge amount.
No.
The stock ones flow pretty good. We have some like the Shelby GT500, cold air picks up 50 wheel horsepower, but it's got a root splitter on it, so any restriction is huge.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I can get you a more accurate number.
I mean, you know, when I post a video, we'll just put the disclaimer on there. I mean, it's just these things are, and yeah, I watched a bunch of other videos with guys with this truck, and it's the same issue with the fifth gens across the board.
I just don't
Everybody's.
want to be like, oh, well, you guys spend $800 in ECU or $300 to unlock it, plus $100 to license it, just to get a dyno pull.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not
And
really.
then plus you're void your warranty at that point.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
So that's the
The
problem.
wife would just kill me if I
So.
if I voided the warranty. So roughly, we're looking at about 12 horsepower, 12 torque,
I would say
somewhere in there.
probably a little bit more than that, but I don't know if that's a spike from the converter. Can you run it in?
If I try to run it in a higher gear and do that, it's gonna grab
The
if I
the
try
speed
to do it
limiter.
in fifth,
We've been doing sixth gear and going down into fifth, or letting it downshift it to fifth. And this time we're gonna go in fourth and then hit it and see if it'll shift up into fifth. We have the limit at fifth. Let's give it a go.
I tried to command it to shift to fifth, it wouldn't shift fast enough.
Wouldn't do it. Wow, look at that. That's
making circles.
I mean, right around that range.
Real similar numbers.
Similar numbers, right? So was that in fourth the whole time?
It went over. It probably hit the red one. That was like in fourth. You think it'll fit if you do it earlier? Alright, try one more time and see what happens. Now I'm curious. I want to see.
All right, one more. One more.
It went all the way down in the third and then shifted into fourth. Oh, is that what it did? Yeah. That says fourth on here and then fifth. That's not even catching starting in third, that's still saying fourth.
Really? Was that there at the end? Because I hear that little.
Yeah, I heard fifth and I was like, sweet, it is fifth. And then that's when I started recording the run.
And nope.
But apparently that was grabbing
Third.
third.
So even from fourth, it'll downshift into third.
Yeah. Even from fifth, it'll grab third if you're too aggressive.
Dang.
It'll double.
Yeah.
Down to. I don't think we're going to be able to clean it up. We tried.
Yeah. It's the best you can do. I mean, roughly 10 to 12.
I would say easily.
Easily 10 to 12. That's.
Look at the.
I'm back in the garage, and I just wanted to go over the results that we got from the cold air intake. Before I get too far into it, I just wanted to kind of touch base on what the type of review is that I'm doing. So it's a real world review. It's real results that I got in real world scenarios. So what does that mean exactly? Basically that I'm going to try to control as many variables as I possibly can when testing out the cold air intakes and all the other products that I test out in real world scenarios. So I'm not going to be able to control all the variables, and that's especially important in this application, and I'll get into that here in just a second. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and bring up the computer and run some numbers. We'll just get that up on the screen real quick. Okay, so the first thing I want to address, does it work? Does it actually make a difference? And the simple answer is yes, it does work, it does make a difference, and we did see noticeable results. Keeping that in mind, we ran the truck stock, and you can see this in the prior video. We got a max horsepower of 304 and a max torque of 325. But that was on our two best runs, and they weren't on the same run. So consistently, 304 horsepower was about what we were hitting. However, the torque that we got at 325, the horsepower on that one came in at 257. So we didn't use that line as our baseline. We decided to go with baseline at 304 and 308 because that was just kind of consistent. And of course the truck wanted to keep upshifting, downshifting. We put the max gear on there and that prevented it from upshifting, but then it still wanted to downshift. So as you saw in the video, there was a couple times that we saw increase of almost 20 both horsepower and torque. But that wasn't really accurate because of the way that it was shifting. So all in all, we did see consistently higher numbers. So I would say with torque is where this thing really shines. We were seeing numbers around 318 pretty consistently. So that's a gain of about 10 foot-pounds, which is noticeable. With horsepower, we did see similar gains, 10 to 12 pounds or horsepower gains. It's easy to call this thing at 10 and 10, right? You're going to see 10 and 10 pretty easily. Here's where it gets a little tricky. aFe claims 14 horsepower and I forgot how much. Okay, there it is. aFe claims 14 horsepower and 13 foot-pounds of torque. We got pretty close to that, but not quite there. However, the truck wanted to keep shifting at about 45, 4600 RPM, which is kind of where we were seeing it. So in order to really get an accurate test and see if you're gonna get those 14 horsepower or 13 foot-pounds of torque or even more, we have to get into the ECU, we have to unlock it and lock it into gear, and that's more money, more time, and most importantly, it's going to void the factory warranty, which is not something that I'm willing to do at this point. You know, it's a 2-year-old truck. I'm not going to go and void the factory warranty on a cold air intake. That being said, I think that most people that are getting a cold air intake are also not going to be getting in there and tuning this thing. We're just throwing on a cold air intake and seeing if we're going to get the horsepower gains and the power gains and torque that it claims. So then that's kind of takes us back to real world scenarios. Is this thing going to give you 14 and 13? Probably, if you were to lock it and run them side by side with stock. It's probably pretty accurate. Is that something that we're going to see consistently driving it? Probably not, because we didn't really start seeing power gains until about, 4,000, 4,600 when it, when it wanted to shift. So it is there. Just be aware that it's not throughout the power band, which goes without saying. It's pretty obvious. But this is what I ran into, testing this thing out without unlocking it and voiding the warranty, which is probably what most of us are going to experience. Long story short, I'm going to call this at about 10 and 10. Easy numbers, give or take, right? As far as miles per gallon goes, it's kind of tough to gauge that in city driving, because kind of depending on traffic and what you're running into, that's going to vary. But I will say that my wife and I went on a trip to California. We live in Reno, Nevada. We went over the mountains, over the Sierras, into Sacramento and that whole area, and then came back, and we peaked at about 17 miles per gallon with the stock intake. Once we had this intake on there, we did another trip. We same thing, Sacramento area, that whole bit. Came back home. I'm not even going to call that a difference at all, because that's within the noise. That's not enough of a big of a difference for me to call it at this point. So on a quick side note, all the tests, all the dyno runs, and the trips over the hill and everything are all on mid-grade. So if you're curious about that, then that takes care of that. Hopefully that answers that question. It should. I mean, that's the biggest part. After that, did it make a difference in sound? I didn't record the engine, with the stock intake, and then this one afterwards. I just didn't really think it was going to make that big of a difference, but I did record before and after on the exhaust to see if it would change the exhaust tune at all. I'll go ahead and play that now. I think that pretty much covers it. So do I think it's worth it? I mean, $400, you get an extra 10 horsepower, extra 10 foot-pounds of torque. Yeah, I think it's worth it. Why not? Like I said, you're not going to lose anything on your miles per gallon. So anyway, that's the... Looks like my wife just started the truck. Anyway, that's all of it. unboxing, installation, testing it out. Hopefully that helps. If it does, give it a thumbs up. I gotta go. Bye. Subscribe. Yes?